Jack stood on the edge of the alien landscape, looking out at the strange world before him. The sky above was a deep purple with 3 moons shining brightly. The ground beneath his boots was soft and spongy, like walking on a mattress. His mission had been simple: survey the planet for resources and return to his ship. But now, as the sun began to set, everything was about to change. He'd been walking for hours, admiring the bizarre plants and alien creatures when he first heard it. A faint cry, almost like the sound of a child calling for help. Jack stopped in his tracks. He looked around, but there was nothing. Just the endless, barren landscape and the strange, windless air. The sound had come from somewhere far off, but it was so quiet he wasn't sure if it had even been real. Jack shook his head, dismissing it. It was probably just some kind of wild animal, something he'd never seen before. But then a second cry echoed through the air, louder this time. This one was unmistakable, a voice, a child's voice calling for help. Curiosity got the best of him. Jack started walking in the direction of the sound, pushing through the thick, grass-like plants that towered over his head. He moved swiftly, his boots crunching on the soft ground as he scanned the horizon. The landscape seemed to stretch on forever, but the cries grew louder with each step. Whoever or whatever was in trouble, he had to help. After what felt like an eternity, Jack reached the source of the noise. He stopped dead in his tracks. There, in a small clearing, stood a young alien boy no older than 10 or 11. His skin was a strange shade of blue, and his large dark eyes glistened with fear. The boy was holding something in his arms, something small wrapped in a cloth. "Hey," Jack called out, taking a step toward the boy. "Are you okay?" The boy looked up, his face filled with tears. His eyes were wide and his breath was shallow, as if he had been crying for a long time. Jack's heart sank as he saw the look of helplessness in the boy's eyes. He had never seen an alien child in this condition before. Was he lost, hurt, or something else entirely? The boy's lips quivered, and he slowly walked toward Jack, his small feet barely making a sound on the soft earth. When he reached Jack, he looked up at him with desperation. Then, in a voice so quiet Jack almost didn't hear it, the boy spoke. "Sir, can you bury my sister?" Jack froze. The words hung in the air, thick and heavy with meaning. For a moment, he wasn't sure what to say. The boy was holding something in his arms wrapped in a tattered cloth. It was too small to be an adult, but it wasn't just a doll or a toy. His heart dropped as he realized what the boy was asking. "Your sister?" Jack repeated, trying to keep his voice calm, but his mind was racing. He had no idea what to do. He was on an alien world, light years from Earth, and here was a child asking him to bury someone. And the worst part, he didn't know why. The boy nodded, his tears falling freely now. She died. I don't know what to do. My people are far away. I couldn't find anyone else. Please, can you bury her?" Jack felt a rush of sympathy for the boy. He couldn't imagine being so far from home, without any family to turn to. But this was a lot. Jack wasn't an expert in alien customs. He didn't know what the boy's people believed about death or burial, and he had no idea how to help. But something in the boy's eyes told him he couldn't turn away. "I don't know how, but I'll help you," Jack said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty in his chest. He knelt down to get a better look at the boy's sister, his stomach turning as he saw the small, lifeless body wrapped in the cloth. It was an alien, yes, but still, it was a child. Jack couldn't ignore the grief he saw in the boy's face. "Thank you," the boy whispered, his voice filled with gratitude. Jack stood up and glanced around, trying to find a suitable spot to bury the body. The ground was soft here, and the air felt still and quiet, almost too quiet. He needed to focus. The boy was depending on him, and somehow, Jack knew that helping him might lead to something much bigger than he could have ever imagined. As Jack began digging into the soft earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The boy was so calm, so accepting of the situation. It was as if he had seen this before, as if death was a part of life on this strange world. And yet Jack couldn't help but wonder, why was the boy alone? Where were his people? And why had he come all this way to ask a human for help? The questions kept swirling in Jack's mind as he worked, but there was no time to think about them now. The boy had trusted him, and Jack wasn't about to let him down. But as he dug deeper, a strange feeling settled in his gut. Something was coming, something he couldn't yet understand. And the boy? The boy knew more than he was letting on. As the grave began to take shape, Jack heard a sound, a low hum in the air. He looked up, his heart racing. In the distance, something was moving. Something large. It was coming fast, and it wasn't a ship. The ground beneath him trembled. Jack turned to the boy. "What is that?" he asked, his voice tense. The boy just stared at him, his face unreadable. "Wait," the boy whispered. The ground trembled beneath Jack's boots as he finished digging the grave. Sweat trickled down his forehead, mixing with the dust of the alien planet. The air felt thick now, as if something was about to happen, something that would shift the course of the day. Jack wiped his brow and looked at the boy, whose face had turned from sorrowful to unreadable. The boy stood beside the grave, his hands clasped together in front of him as if praying. Though Jack had no idea if alien rituals were anything like human ones. The boy had not said a word since Jack started digging, but his eyes never left him. Jack could feel the boy's gaze, steady and focused, almost like he was trying to measure Jack's every movement. There was a heavy silence between them, broken only by the occasional hum in the distance. Whatever it was growing louder, getting closer. Jack couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling that settled in his chest. His instincts told him to stay alert. The boy had asked him to bury his sister, and Jack had agreed. But something felt off. He didn't know the boy's name, and he didn't know why the child was here alone. His mind raced, wondering why this boy would travel so far, why he was so calm, and why he had chosen Jack of all people to help him. As Jack placed the small alien body in the grave, the boy finally spoke, his voice low but clear. "You're the only one who can help me," he said, his eyes locked on Jack's. "There's no one else left. No one who can understand. Not like you." Jack stood up, his heart skipping a beat at the boy's words. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice soft, trying to keep the fear from creeping in. He was trying to piece together the situation, but it didn't make sense. He didn't know this planet, the boy's people, or the strange pull he felt to protect him. The boy took a step forward, his tiny hands trembling. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Jack frowned, confused. "I don't think I understand. You're just a child, a lost child." The boy's eyes hardened for a moment, as if he had just heard something offensive. He straightened up, his posture changing from that of a scared child to someone much older, someone who carried the weight of a hidden truth. "I'm not just any child," he said, his voice steady now. "I'm the last of my kind. My family and my people, they're gone. And the ones who took them, they're coming for you next." Jack felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The boy's words hung in the air, thick with the weight of their meaning. "What do you mean? Who's coming for me?" The boy's gaze flicked to the sky, where the strange hum was now unmistakable, growing louder with each passing second. It wasn't a ship, Jack realized. It was the sound of something much bigger, something more ominous. The boy turned his eyes back to Jack, his face grave. "You're not just helping me bury my sister," the boy said slowly. "You've just become part of a much bigger story. The ones who killed my people, they will come for you. They will come for everyone." Jack's blood ran cold. He felt a lump in his throat as his mind raced, trying to make sense of what the boy was saying. "Who are they? Why would they come after me? I'm just a human. I'm just here to do a job." The boy shook his head. "It's not about who you are. It's about what you're going to be." He paused, as if considering his next words carefully. "You've been chosen, Jack. They will come because of you. And because of me." Jack took a step back, trying to process everything the boy had just said. He had no idea how the child knew his name, but the boy's piercing gaze told him this was no coincidence. Jack's hands clenched into fists as he tried to stay calm. He was out of his element here. The boy seemed to know far more than he was letting on. "I don't know what you mean," Jack said, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm just here to bury a body. I don't even know who you are." "You'll know soon enough," the boy replied cryptically. He then turned and began walking toward the horizon, where the distant hum had now turned into a roar, a sound that seemed to shake the very ground beneath Jack's feet. "We don't have much time. The ship will land soon, and when it does, everything will change." Jack turned to follow, his heart pounding. He had no idea what the boy was talking about, but one thing was certain. His life was about to take a drastic turn. As they walked, the boy glanced over his shoulder at Jack. "I've seen your kind before, Jack, the humans. You're not as weak as you think." Jack frowned. "What are you talking about?" The boy didn't answer. Instead, he gestured toward the sky, where a dark shadow was beginning to appear, growing larger with each passing moment. "They're here." Jack's eyes widened as he looked up. A massive alien ship hovered in the sky, its sleek form cutting through the clouds like a knife. The ship's design was nothing like anything Jack had ever seen. No human technology could create something so advanced, so imposing. The boy's voice was barely a whisper. "This is just the beginning, Jack. Get ready." Before Jack could respond, the ship landed with a thunderous roar, sending a shock wave through the ground. Jack instinctively reached for his weapon, but the boy stopped him with a hand on his arm. "They won't hurt you," the boy said, his tone calm. "Not yet." Jack didn't know what to think. All he knew was that his world had just been turned upside down. He had been dragged into something much bigger than a simple mission. And now, as the massive ship's doors began to open, he knew his life would never be the same again. The ground beneath Jack's feet trembled as the massive ship's engines powered down. He felt the vibrations shoot up through his boots, his body instinctively tensing. He turned to the boy, whose expression had shifted from calm to something more intense, more resolute. The child's eyes were locked on the approaching ship, as though he knew exactly what was about to happen. Jack's hand instinctively reached for his blaster, which hung at his side. But the boy shook his head slowly, his eyes wide with something that looked like both fear and anticipation. "No," the boy whispered, his voice soft but firm. "They won't hurt you, not yet." Jack didn't understand. His instincts screamed for him to be ready to prepare for a fight, but the boy seemed so certain. He was a child, yet there was a wisdom in his gaze that made Jack hesitate. Something about this situation was far from ordinary. The ship touched down, the ground shaking under its massive weight. The sound of its engines dying away left a strange silence hanging in the air. Jack turned his attention back to the vessel, a sleek, angular craft unlike anything he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered with a reflective sheen that seemed to blend in with the surrounding atmosphere, making it appear almost invisible in certain light. It was advanced, too advanced for any human technology he knew. The boy stepped forward, his tiny hand outstretched as if reaching for something only he could see. Jack stayed close behind, his gaze darting to the massive doors of the ship as they began to slide open. What emerged from the ship's interior made Jack freeze in place. Tall, imposing figures stepped out, their bodies covered in sleek, dark armor that glinted in the light of the alien suns. They looked human at first glance, but their eyes, large, dark, and completely black, were unmistakably alien. Their skin was a pale shade of green, their faces sharp and angular like predatory creatures. These were not just any aliens, these were the kind of beings that made legends, and they had come for something. The leader of the group stepped forward, his towering figure dwarfing the boy. He locked eyes with Jack, and for a moment there was a long, uncomfortable silence. Jack felt a chill run down his spine as the alien's gaze bored into him, as if evaluating whether Jack was a threat or an asset. His heart raced and his grip on his blaster tightened. "Is this him?" the leader asked in a deep, resonant voice that seemed to echo across the landscape. The words were in English, which made Jack feel a brief moment of relief, though that relief quickly turned into suspicion. How did they know his language? The boy nodded without a word, his gaze steady. He looked up at the leader, his face a mixture of fear and determination. Jack couldn't help but wonder, was this child truly the innocent he appeared to be? Or was there more to his story than he let on? "This is the one?" the leader asked again, stepping closer. His eyes never left Jack. Jack could feel the weight of the question like it was a test he was supposed to pass. But he had no idea what kind of test it was. The boy nodded again, and the leader looked at him with something akin to approval. Then, without taking his eyes off Jack, the leader spoke again, this time in a quieter voice. "He doesn't know yet, does he?" The leader's voice was laced with something cold and calculating. "I suppose it's time he finds out." Jack's heart skipped a beat. He had no idea what the leader meant by that, but he didn't like the sound of it. The boy had already mentioned that Jack had been chosen, but chosen for what? He still didn't have the answers. The alien leader turned his attention back to the boy, his expression softening for just a moment. "You did well," he said, his tone now almost approving. "It's time to tell him everything." The boy nodded, and Jack took a cautious step forward. "Tell me what?" he asked, his voice tight with confusion. "What is all this? Why are you here? Why me?" The leader looked at Jack as though the answer was painfully obvious, his lips curling into a small, almost pitying smile. "You are part of something much larger than you realize. Something bigger than you've ever imagined." Jack was about to respond when the boy spoke up, his voice unexpectedly strong. "You're the key. he said, his eyes never leaving Jack's. "You're the key to saving everything." Jack blinked, trying to process the boy's words. "What do you mean? How can I be the key?" The boy stepped closer, his small hand resting on Jack's arm. "You're human. They fear you. They always have." His voice dropped to a whisper. "They're not the only ones who can destroy worlds. You have something inside you that they don't understand, and that's why they're coming." Jack's mind raced. Everything he had been told, the boy, the ship, the cryptic warnings, it all felt like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. The boy's words rang in his ears, but he couldn't grasp their meaning. Who was they? Who was the boy, really? And how was he supposed to stop something so massive and dangerous when he barely understood what was happening? Before Jack could respond, the leader raised a hand, silencing him. "It's not yet time for you to know the full truth," the leader said. "But soon you will." With a sudden movement, the leader turned and motioned for Jack and the boy to follow. The group of armored aliens began marching toward the ship, their footsteps heavy and purposeful. Jack exchanged a look with the boy, who gave him a small nod, as if silently urging him to follow. Jack hesitated for a moment, his mind spinning with questions. But in the end, he had no choice. The boy had already pulled him into something far beyond his comprehension, and now there was no turning back. As Jack stepped toward the ship, he felt a strange sense of destiny weighing on his shoulders. Whatever was coming, he wasn't ready for it, but there was no way to avoid the path that lay ahead. The questions kept swirling in his mind, but one thing was certain: his life would never be the same again. The door to the ship slid open and Jack stepped inside, unsure of what awaited him. The door to the ship closed behind Jack with a soft hiss, sealing him inside the alien vessel. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls pulsed with a faint blue light, and the air was thick with the smell of something unfamiliar, metallic yet oddly organic. It felt as though the ship itself were alive, breathing, responding to their presence. The boy led the way down a narrow corridor, his footsteps quick and sure despite the alien environment. Jack followed closely behind, trying to ignore the unsettling feeling that the ship was somehow watching him, as if the walls themselves were aware of his every movement. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he wondered what kind of people, or creatures, he had just stepped into the middle of. The tall armored aliens were stationed at various points along the hall, their eyes tracking Jack's every move, silent and unreadable. Finally, they came to a large chamber. The walls in this room were covered in intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer and change with the light, as though the ship itself was alive and communicating in some strange alien language. At the center of the room stood a high, ornate chair, almost throne-like, with a tall figure seated upon it. This was no ordinary alien leader. It was the one who had been at the forefront when the ship first landed. The alien's skin was a deep shade of green, and his eyes glowed with an intensity that sent a chill down Jack's spine. "Sit," the leader commanded in a voice that seemed to reverberate through the room, low and powerful. Jack felt an irresistible pull to obey. It wasn't a request, it was an order. The boy, now standing beside Jack, gave him a silent nod, urging him to take the seat. Jack hesitated for a moment, but then he sat, feeling an odd sensation wash over him. It wasn't physical, more like a sense of overwhelming presence, as if the room itself were watching him. He tried to steady his breathing, to ground himself in this unfamiliar reality, but every instinct he had told him something was terribly wrong. The leader stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he observed Jack. There was something almost calculating in his gaze. "You still don't understand, do you?" the leader asked. "You think you're here by chance, that this is some random meeting? But you're wrong, human. You were chosen." Jack's heart raced, but he didn't speak. He couldn't. The weight of the situation pressed down on him and his throat felt tight. What did this alien mean? Chosen for what? The leader stepped closer, his towering form casting a shadow over Jack. "The boy you helped," the leader continued, gesturing to the child standing silently by his side. "He is the last of his kind. And you—" He paused, his gaze flicking to Jack, then back to the boy. "You have just made an enemy of an empire." Jack felt a cold sweat bead on his brow. His mind raced with 1,000 questions. An empire? What was this alien talking about? He had simply tried to help a child in need, to bury his sister. But now, sitting in front of this alien leader, he felt like a pawn in a game far beyond his understanding. The boy spoke, his voice steady and calm but with an underlying urgency. My people were killed by the elders. They are an ancient race, powerful beyond measure. They've conquered countless worlds. But they fear one thing, the humans. They fear what you might become. Jack's confusion deepened. What do you mean? Why would they fear humans? We're just— Not just, the leader interrupted, his voice sharp. Humans have the ability to adapt, to evolve in ways no one has ever seen. You are the only species that has repeatedly overcome impossible odds. The elders know this. They've been watching you, studying you for centuries. Jack's mind spun. He thought back to Earth, to the wars, the struggles, the chaos. Could it be true? Could humanity really have the potential to threaten such powerful alien races? He didn't know, but it seemed far too incredible to be a lie. You see, the boy continued, stepping closer to Jack. My people were the guardians of the secrets, the ancient knowledge that the elders want. We were the keepers of the keys to a power that could change the balance of the universe. But they killed us, wiped us out to get to that knowledge. Jack's eyes widened as he put the pieces together. So they're after you because of what you know? The knowledge your people had? The boy nodded solemnly. Yes, but they didn't count on one thing. They didn't count on me surviving. And they didn't count on you either. Jack's breath hitched. What do you mean? They didn't know you would come to our aid, the boy said softly. You are more important than you realize, Jack. You are the key. The room felt colder suddenly. The air seemed to crackle with energy, and Jack felt the weight of the boy's words settle heavily on his shoulders. He was the key? The key to what? The boy's people were dead. The elders were hunting them, and now they were coming for him. What kind of power did humanity hold that could make an empire tremble? You're telling me I'm supposed to save the universe? Jack asked, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. I'm just a regular guy. I have no idea what any of this means. The leader's eyes flashed with an intensity that sent a shiver down Jack's spine. You may not understand now, but you will soon enough. The elders believe you are the next step in the evolution of the human race, and they will stop at nothing to make sure they control you before you realize your true potential. Jack's head was spinning. Everything was happening so fast. The boy, the aliens, the deadly empire, the weight of it all was crushing. He was just a human who had tried to do something simple, something kind, and now, because of one act of compassion, he was caught in the middle of a galactic struggle. Get ready, Jack, the leader said, his voice low and commanding. The elders are coming, and they won't stop until they have what they want, but you might be the one who can stop them. Jack swallowed hard, trying to process the enormity of what the leader was saying. He wasn't sure if he believed it, but deep down, a small part of him knew that his life had just changed forever. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was part of something bigger. Much bigger. And now he had to make a choice. Would he run? Or would he face the future that awaited him? Before he could answer, a deep rumbling sound shook the ship. They've arrived, the leader said, his voice cold. And they are not alone. The ship's walls trembled with the deep, resonating hum of an incoming force. Jack's pulse quickened, his mind racing. Everything was happening too fast. A few hours ago, he was on a routine mission, trying to make sense of an alien world, and now, he was sitting in a high-tech vessel surrounded by beings who spoke of universal empires, deadly secrets, and a power within him that he could barely comprehend. The boy, no, the last survivor of his kind, stood by Jack's side, his face still as calm as it had been since Jack first met him. He seemed unshaken by the escalating tension, though Jack could see the faint tremble in his hands. Despite his small size, the boy had a quiet strength that Jack couldn't quite explain. Perhaps it was his knowledge of the coming storm that made him so composed. Or perhaps, like everyone else in this strange saga, he had no choice but to be brave. The alien leader, who had been silent since his last warning, stepped forward, his long strides echoing through the ship's hollow corridors. His eyes were sharp, calculating as he addressed Jack once again. You don't understand the gravity of your situation, human, the leader said, his voice cool and direct. The elders are not merciful. They are a race of conquerors, and they will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. Your people have no idea what they're up against. Jack swallowed, his throat dry. What do you want from me? You've said I'm the key. What does that even mean? His voice wavered with uncertainty, and he could feel the weight of the moment bearing down on him. The boy was looking at him again, his eyes full of expectation. The leader's gaze softened slightly, though his demeanor remained stern. You are the catalyst, Jack. The elders believe they can control humanity, mold you into a weapon, but they underestimate you. They think you're just another species to dominate, to break. They have no idea that you, your kind, are capable of far more. Jack's mind spun. I'm not special, he muttered, shaking his head. I'm just a guy trying to survive out here. I don't have some hidden power or... The leader interrupted him, his voice growing more intense. You do not understand. You humans adapt at an unprecedented rate. You have the potential to rise beyond your limitations, to break free from the shackles the elders want to place upon you, and they know this. They are terrified of it. Jack's breath caught in his chest. And the boy? He's the one who... What? He's the one who brought me into this? The boy nodded, his face serious. I was sent to find someone who could protect what's left of my people. Someone strong enough to stand against the elders when the time came. I didn't know it would be you, Jack. But now I know you are the one who will help us defeat them. Jack stared at the boy, his mind trying to process the gravity of what was being said. He didn't ask for any of this. He didn't ask to be part of some cosmic battle. And yet here he was, caught in the middle of something far bigger than himself. He wanted to deny it, to walk away, to refuse this strange call to arms. But deep down, a small voice whispered that this was his destiny, that somehow his actions would alter the course of everything. We don't have time, the leader said sharply, snapping Jack out of his thoughts. The elders are on their way. The moment they realize you're alive, they will come for you. And they won't stop until they have you. You must decide now whether you will help us. Jack stood up slowly, his legs unsteady as he tried to digest the enormity of what he had just been told. His eyes flicked between the leader, the boy, and the ship's metallic walls. The rumbling sound was growing louder now, closer. His hand instinctively moved to the blaster on his hip, but he knew that wasn't enough. He could barely comprehend what he was being asked to do. What do you expect me to do? He asked, his voice quieter this time, filled with frustration. I'm just one man. What can I possibly do against them? The leader's eyes narrowed, a brief flash of something like disappointment crossing his features. You have more power than you know. Your species, humanity, has survived against impossible odds time and time again. You are not like the others. Your ability to adapt, to evolve, is why you are the key. The elders believe that when you realize your potential, you will be their greatest threat. The boy stepped forward, his voice soft but filled with resolve. You're not just fighting for yourself, Jack. You're fighting for every human out there who doesn't even know the war is coming. If you do nothing, the elders will destroy us all. But if you help us, we can stop them. Jack's chest tightened as the reality of their words settled in. He had no choice. He could run, he could try to hide, but that wouldn't change the inevitable. The elders would find him, they would find humanity, and they would destroy them. He could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on him, suffocating him. But deep inside, he knew what needed to be done. He turned toward the leader, his face set with determination. What do I need to do? The leader's lips curled into a faint smile. We fight back. We fight for our survival, and we fight together. Just then, the ship's hull shook violently, the sound of something massive impacting the outer surface echoing through the vessel. The time for decisions had passed. The elders were here, and Jack had no choice but to step into the fire. The leader moved quickly to a control panel, pressing a series of buttons that caused the ship to hum to life. Get ready, he said. This is just the beginning. As the ship's engines roared to life, Jack felt a surge of adrenaline course through his veins. He wasn't sure if he was ready for the war that lay ahead, but one thing was certain. He had just made the decision to fight, and there was no turning back now. The moment the ship's engines powered up, Jack felt the immense force push him back into his seat. The entire vessel seemed to hum with a power unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He glanced around the control room, taking in the sleek, otherworldly technology that hummed around him. Alien symbols and controls blinked in a complex, rhythmic pattern, each one seeming to pulse with a life of its own. The walls themselves seemed to shimmer, almost like the ship was alive, breathing and responding to the world outside. The boy standing beside Jack was as still as ever, his eyes focused on the view beyond the ship's windows. Jack could feel the boy's quiet intensity, but there was something else there too, a kind of anticipation mixed with something darker. Jack couldn't tell what exactly was going through the boy's mind, but he knew that in a way, they were both on the same path now. There was no turning back. We are leaving the atmosphere, the leader said, his voice calm and commanding as if this were simply another day. He didn't seem the least bit worried about the approaching threat. The alien's eyes met Jack's, and a small, knowing smile curled his lips. "Hold on tight. You'll need to understand this if you're going to help us." Jack's eyes darted around the room, trying to make sense of the alien technology. The control panel in front of him shifted, and a large holographic display of stars and planets filled the air, floating in front of him. A holographic map showed their location, zooming in on a nearby planet, one Jack didn't recognize. "Where are we going?" Jack asked, his voice betraying his unease. The leader didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at the boy, who nodded, and then turned his attention back to the map. "You will need to learn quickly. The next few hours are crucial. We're taking you to a place known as the Nexus." Jack frowned. "The Nexus? What's that?" The boy spoke this time, his voice calm but heavy with meaning. "The Nexus is a hidden base, a sanctuary for those who resist the Elders. It's where the last of my people went when they were hunted. We thought it was lost, but it's still there, and we're going to need it." Jack's heart skipped. He was being asked to join a war he didn't fully understand. A war against an empire that could wipe out humanity. And now they were headed to a hidden base that could be the key to stopping the Elders. The boy had called it a sanctuary, but it felt like a battlefield to Jack. The leader's voice interrupted his thoughts. "You may not know it yet, but your presence at the Nexus will be pivotal. You are not just a fighter in this war, you are a symbol. Your people, humanity, they will look to you for guidance when the time comes." Jack shook his head, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the situation. "I don't know if I can do this. I'm not a hero, I'm just a guy trying to survive. I didn't ask for any of this." The boy's gaze softened as he looked up at Jack. "No one asks to be a hero, but sometimes the choice is made for us." He paused, looking down at the floor before meeting Jack's eyes again. "You may not think you're ready, but the universe doesn't wait. You'll grow into it, Jack, just like your people always do." The leader nodded in agreement, his voice steady. "This is why the Elders fear you. The resilience, the adaptability. Humans rise when they have nothing left to lose. You'll learn quickly, Jack, you must." Jack exhaled slowly, trying to steady himself. Every part of him screamed that he wasn't ready for this, that he didn't have the power to face what was coming. But the words the boy spoke rang in his ears. "You'll grow into it." It was strange, but he could feel the truth in them, even if he didn't fully understand what it meant. The ship jolted suddenly, throwing Jack forward in his seat. He gripped the armrests instinctively, his heart pounding. The holographic map flickered as the ship's speed increased, rocketing them toward the unknown. The boy looked over at Jack, his eyes steady. "They've found us. The Elders are sending their scouts." The leader's tone didn't waver. "We have to go faster." Jack's breath caught in his throat. He knew this was just the beginning. The Elders were out there, and if they were already on their trail, they wouldn't stop until they found them. Every second counted now. "Jack," the boy continued, his voice softer but urgent, "there's something you need to know. The Nexus isn't just a sanctuary. It's the last hope for your people. We've been fighting the Elders for centuries, but without the strength of the human race, we can't win. You have the power to lead us." Jack didn't respond immediately. His mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. The last hope for your people. It was too much for him to take in all at once. But he couldn't ignore the urgency in the boy's voice, the intensity in the leader's gaze. He had a role to play. Whether he was ready or not, the fight had come to him. The ship shook again, this time with more force. Outside the windows, the dark expanse of space spread out before them, and Jack could see the distant glittering lights of distant stars. But between them and the stars, something else was coming, something dark. "They're here," the leader said. His voice was calm, but there was a tension in the air, an unspoken understanding that this was the moment when everything changed. The battle was about to begin. The boy's hand gripped Jack's arm, his small fingers surprisingly strong. "We can't run anymore. We have to fight, Jack, we have to fight now." Jack nodded slowly, his heart hammering in his chest. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't chosen this path. But there was no going back. The Elders were coming, and he had to stand his ground. Not just for himself, but for humanity. As the ship hurtled toward the Nexus, Jack realized one thing: he wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time, he felt the weight of his new purpose settle around him. The choice had been made. The fight had begun, and there was no turning back. The ship plunged through the stars, its engines roaring as it raced toward the Nexus, a hidden sanctuary that Jack still didn't fully understand. The boy who had become his unlikely guide through this war-torn universe sat beside him, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The leader, now standing in front of the control panel, was silent, his attention solely on the path ahead. The tension inside the ship was palpable, thick with anticipation. Jack's heart was pounding in his chest, every beat echoing the uncertainty in his mind. They had made it this far, but the real test was still ahead. The elders were closing in, and there was no time to waste. Jack looked out the viewport at the void of space, feeling a strange sense of both awe and dread. The stars shimmered like distant diamonds, but between them something darker loomed. It wasn't just the imminent threat of the elders. It was the weight of everything Jack had learned in the past hours, everything that had been thrust upon him. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was at the center of a galactic struggle, a struggle that would determine the fate of not just one world, but many. "Are you ready?" the boy asked quietly, his voice steady, but Jack could hear the uncertainty beneath it. He was a child, but in this moment he seemed older, burdened by knowledge and fate far beyond his years. Jack looked over at him, forcing a calm expression. "I don't think I've ever been ready for anything like this." His voice was thick with the weight of everything they were about to face. "But I guess we don't get to choose when it happens, do we?" The boy shook his head, a faint smile flickering on his lips. "No, we don't." The ship's controls suddenly flashed red, and the leader turned to them, his eyes sharp. "They've found us," he said, his voice grave. "The Elders' scouts are now in orbit. We have minutes before they launch a full assault." Jack stood up, his legs shaky as he moved toward the control console. The ship had been a sanctuary, a place of safety, but now it felt like the calm before the storm. He had no training, no experience in intergalactic warfare, yet here he was, caught between the boy's desperate hopes and the merciless will of the Elders. "You don't have to do this," the leader said, noticing Jack's hesitation. "We can fight them. We have the power." But Jack wasn't sure if the power the leader spoke of was enough. The Elders had an entire empire, centuries of domination, and the boy's people had already been destroyed. What could a single human, no matter how adaptable, do against that? "I know what you're thinking," the boy said, his voice cutting through Jack's doubts. "But you are not alone. We have allies. The Nexus is not just a base, it's a rallying point. There are many who are ready to fight, and they're waiting for you to lead them." Jack's chest tightened. Lead them? He didn't know how to lead anyone. How could he, a simple traveler, suddenly become the figurehead of a rebellion? The ship jolted again, more violently this time, and Jack grabbed the side of the console to steady himself. A flash of red streaked across the viewport, the first of the enemy's weapons fire. "It's time," the leader said, his tone more resolute than ever. "Prepare yourself. The Elders won't hesitate." Jack took a deep breath, his mind racing. Everything he had been through, everything he had learned, had led him here. The choice was no longer just his, it was the universe's. The Elders had come, and they weren't going to stop until they had control. But Jack couldn't let that happen. Not now, not when the stakes were this high. "I'm ready," Jack said finally, his voice firm. "Let's fight." The leader gave him a brief nod of approval before turning back to the controls. "We've made our stand. Now we fight to win." The boy stepped forward, his small hand resting on Jack's arm. "Remember, Jack," he said softly, "it's not just about the battle. It's about the hope you bring with you. You are the spark that can ignite a revolution." A roar filled the ship as the weapons fire from the Elders' scouts hit again, rattling the entire vessel. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he turned toward the boy. There was so much riding on him now, on his ability to lead, to fight, to make the impossible choice. He had no more time for doubts. The ship entered the atmosphere of the Nexus, a massive hidden planet on the edge of known space. As they descended, the massive base below them came into view. A sprawling city of alien architecture stretched out before them, with vast shields flickering across the horizon. Jack could see the signs of life below, a mix of different species, each one preparing for what was coming. "This is it," the leader said, his voice reverberating in Jack's ears. "We fight for our survival here. The Nexus is not just a base, it's the heart of the resistance. And you, Jack, are the one who can give us hope. This is your moment." The ship landed with a thunderous thud, and the ramp descended, revealing a sea of alien faces, each one looking toward Jack with a mixture of hope and expectation. They were counting on him. A human who had been thrown into this war by sheer chance was now their leader. Jack stepped out of the ship, his boots making contact with the soft earth beneath him. The boy stood beside him and the leader followed, his imposing figure a symbol of strength in this uncertain moment. For a brief moment, everything was silent. The weight of the moment pressed down on Jack, but then something inside him shifted. He wasn't just a bystander anymore. He wasn't just a human caught in a war he didn't understand. He was the symbol of hope. He was the key to the future of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The sound of enemy ships echoed in the distance. The elders were coming. But Jack didn't look back. He faced forward, the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders, but for the first time, he knew exactly what he had to do. The fight was here, and he was ready,